The air at the observatory was thin, cold, and pristine, a stark contrast to the buzz of machinery inside the high-tech command center. Perched atop the rugged Andes, the observatory felt isolated from the world below, as though suspended between the Earth and the stars. For Dr. Elena Vasquez, it was perfect. The distance gave her clarity, the space to think without the distractions of modern life. As she peered out the thick, glass windows, her eyes traced the early morning horizon, the first rays of sunlight spreading across the snow-capped peaks. The quiet that lingered over the facility was broken only by the rhythmic hum of servers and the occasional soft beep of incoming data streams. She leaned back in her chair and cracked her knuckles, glancing at the cluster of screens surrounding her, each one pulsing with information she had long grown accustomed to. Elena was a scientist, a geophysicist with a specialty in planetary magnetism. But on mornings like these, when she was alone in the control room, she felt less like a scientist and more like a sentinel, standing guard over the mysteries of the universe. The Earth's magnetic field was her life's work. Its complexity, its fluctuations, its role in shielding the planet from cosmic radiation, all of it fascinated her. But today, something was different. The usual, subtle shifts in the field were wrong, and that nagging sensation in her gut told her there was more to it than just random noise in the data. A door slid open with a soft hiss, breaking her reverie. Major Jacob Richter, his military uniform crisp and clean, walked in with his usual commanding presence. A former combat pilot turned military liaison, Richter had been assigned to the observatory 2 years ago as part of the government's increasing interest in monitoring potential extraterrestrial threats. Elena had initially resented the idea of a military presence in her scientific haven, but over time, she'd come to appreciate his pragmatism. In the months that followed, their unlikely partnership had proven more effective than either had expected. "Morning, Doc," he greeted her, his deep voice warm but alert. Richter had a habit of being casual until he needed to be deadly serious, a quality that made him both disarming and dangerous in equal measure. "Morning," she replied, barely looking up as her fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, bringing up the latest readings. Richter noticed the intensity in her eyes and walked to her side, looming over the screens with curiosity. "Something wrong?" Elena took a deep breath and paused, staring at the undulating lines and graphs representing Earth's magnetic field. The field, usually calm and predictable, was pulsating. Small, but unmistakable spikes rising and falling in ways she had never seen before popped up across the globe. It was almost as though something external was causing the fluctuations, like ripples on a pond after a stone had been thrown in. But there was no stone, no obvious cause. "See for yourself," she said, gesturing to the data. "The magnetic field's behaving strangely. These fluctuations, they're global, and they're getting stronger. I've been tracking them for the past few hours. This isn't just some random blip." Richter leaned in, squinting at the data. He might not have been a scientist, but years of training and exposure to mission-critical systems had taught him how to recognize when something was off. And this was definitely off. "Solar flare?" he asked, his brows furrowed in thought. The military had standing protocols for solar storms, shutting down satellites, preparing for potential communication blackouts. Nothing about that situation would faze him. "I thought of that," Elena replied, "but it's not solar activity. I double-checked with the Space Weather Station. Everything's normal. Besides, solar flares usually cause broader disruptions, not these precise, localized spikes." Richter's face tightened. "Localized?" She nodded. "It's like the magnetic field is responding to something out there. Not random cosmic noise. Something deliberate." Before Richter could reply, the intercom crackled to life. "Dr. Vasquez, Major Richter, this is Lieutenant Miller. We've picked up an anomalous signal on the long-range scanners. You should come see this." Elena's heart skipped a beat. Signals in deep space weren't uncommon. Humanity had been listening to the cosmos for decades, but it was rare for anything truly unusual to show up. Richter's eyes narrowed as he nodded to her. "Let's check it out." They both moved swiftly toward the adjoining room, where Lieutenant Grace Miller sat at her console, her face illuminated by the glow of several large monitors. Miller was young, sharp, and thorough, traits Elena appreciated, especially when the stakes were high. "What have you got, Grace?" Elena asked as she approached. Miller didn't take her eyes off the screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. "It's a low-frequency signal, coming from deep space, about 3 light-years out, and it's directed consistent pulses, not random. It started around the same time you noticed those magnetic fluctuations. Could be a coincidence, but—" Richter snorted softly. "We both know there are no coincidences." Miller pulled up a star map on one of the larger displays. A blinking dot appeared on the far edge of the solar system, far beyond Pluto and the Oort cloud. "Here's the source. It's moving. Fast." Elena's stomach turned as she stared at the screen. It was difficult to grasp the enormity of space, the sheer scale of the distances involved, but one thing was clear: that object, whatever it was, wasn't natural. "Have you confirmed it's not a rogue satellite or some leftover debris?" Richter asked, though he knew the answer before Miller could reply. "Already checked the databases," Miller said. "No human-made object matches this trajectory or speed. Whatever it is, it's not from here." Elena leaned closer to the screen, her fingers hovering just above the surface. "And it's headed straight for us." They stood in tense silence for a moment, watching the small, blinking dot approach. The deep space object was closing in on Earth, and it was moving faster than anything human technology could achieve. There was no denying what this meant. Richter broke the silence. "It could be scanning us. Could this signal be part of some kind of reconnaissance?" Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Maybe, or it could be something worse." Before they could speculate further, the room was filled with a high-pitched beep and alarm, shrill and urgent. Lieutenant Miller's hands flew back to her keyboard as red lights flashed across the observatory. "We're detecting an energy surge from the object, high-intensity electromagnetic radiation. Whatever it is, it's about to do something big." Richter straightened up, his expression hardening. "What kind of energy?" Elena's heart pounded in her chest as she scanned the incoming data. Her hands trembled as she read the figures. "This is off the charts. It's massive." Her words barely had time to register before the main screen flashed, showing the energy wave rushing toward Earth. The room filled with warning klaxons, and Miller's voice cut through the noise. "Impact in 20 seconds. Elena's breath caught in her throat. In all her years studying the Earth's magnetic field, she had never seen anything like this. The data from the energy wave was overwhelming, incomprehensible in its scope. And yet, she felt helpless, unable to do anything but watch as the alien attack drew nearer. "Brace yourselves," Richter ordered, his military instincts kicking in as he grabbed onto the nearest console for support. Elena did the same, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk. 10 seconds. The wave grew closer, filling the screen, its massive force barreling through the void toward them. 5 seconds. Elena closed her eyes, bracing for impact. But then nothing. No blast, no shockwave, no destruction. She opened her eyes just in time to see the alien energy wave collide with Earth's magnetic field and stop. Tendrils of electromagnetic force leaped from the planet's poles, wrapping themselves around the incoming energy and dispersing it in all directions. The energy was deflected, scattered like raindrops on a windshield. It didn't penetrate," Miller whispered in disbelief. "It bounced off." Elena stood frozen, her eyes wide as she tried to process what she had just witnessed. The magnetic field, Earth's natural defense against solar winds and cosmic radiation, had acted like an impenetrable force field. It had stopped the alien attack cold. "Impossible," Richter muttered under his breath. "How the hell?" Elena's mind raced. This wasn't luck. This wasn't chance. The magnetic field had reacted to the attack. It had protected them, like it had always been there, waiting for this moment. Richter shook his head, still trying to absorb what had just happened. "If they know we're protected, they'll try again. And next time, they'll come with something stronger. Elena stared at the monitors, her hands still shaking. Earth's magnetic field had saved them, but she knew Richter was right. The aliens weren't done, and now they knew that Earth had a secret weapon one, even its inhabitants had only just begun to understand. The realization settled in her mind like a cold weight. Earth's magnetic field wasn't just a passive force of nature, it was something more, something no one had ever suspected. And now, they were in a race against time to unlock its secrets before the next attack came. Elena looked up at Richter, who was already back in action, barking orders into his communicator. His usual calm demeanor had been replaced by a sense of urgency. "I need a secure line to command, now," he said sharply, his voice echoing in the control room. "And pull up any satellite data we have on this object, find out if there's anything else out there." Lieutenant Miller scrambled to comply, her fingers moving swiftly across the console, calling up new streams of information. The room hummed with activity, a stark contrast to the moments of quiet before the alien signal had appeared. "Elena!" Richter's voice cut through her thoughts. "We need to know everything about what just happened, how the magnetic field deflected that attack, and how we can use it." Elena nodded, forcing herself to focus despite the whirlwind of thoughts rushing through her mind. "I'll run a full diagnostic on the field interactions," she said, heading to her station. But this wasn't just a normal defensive reaction. It was like the magnetic field knew what was coming. Richter looked at her, his eyes narrowing. "Are you saying it's intelligent?" "I don't know," Elena replied, her voice uncertain. "Not in the way we think of intelligence, but something about the way it responded. It was too precise, too coordinated." Richter rubbed his chin, his mind clearly racing with the implications. "Whatever it is, we need to find out how to control it. If Earth's magnetic field can repel attacks like that, it could be the key to our survival." Elena sat down at her workstation, the flickering screens lighting up with streams of data. She began reviewing the magnetic field's behavior during the attack, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she analyzed every spike, every fluctuation. It was like trying to decode an alien language. There were patterns there, subtle but undeniable. The field had reacted as though it were anticipating the attack, adjusting itself in real time to deflect the incoming energy. She leaned in closer, her heart racing as the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fall into place. "Richter," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The field, it's been responding to external threats for longer than we realized. Look at this." He walked over, his gaze fixed on the screen as she pulled up historical data. The Earth's magnetic field had always been dynamic, shifting and fluctuating over time. But now Elena saw it with new eyes. Every time a major solar storm had approached, the field had not just shielded the planet, it had adapted, actively strengthening itself in response to the threat. And not just against cosmic radiation, against anything that threatened Earth from the outside. "This has been going on for centuries," Elena continued, her voice growing more confident. "The field isn't just a natural defense, it's proactive. Like it's evolving to protect us from threats we don't even know about." Richter frowned, trying to process the enormity of what she was saying. "So, you're saying the magnetic field is some kind of defense system, not just a fluke of nature?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." Elena felt a strange mix of awe and fear settle over her. "And if we can figure out how it works, we might be able to control it." Richter took a step back, crossing his arms. "If the aliens come back, we'll need more than just luck on our side. We'll need to know exactly what this thing can do." Elena nodded, but her thoughts were already spiraling deeper into the implications. If Earth's magnetic field was capable of such precise defense mechanisms, then why had it evolved this way? Had it always been there, dormant, waiting for a moment like this? Or was there something else, something bigger happening that they didn't yet understand? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, sharp beep from Lieutenant Miller's console. "Major, Dr. Vasquez," Miller called out, her voice tight with tension. "We've got movement. Multiple signals heading this way." Elena's stomach dropped. She and Richter rushed to Miller's station, where the long-range scanners displayed several new blips, rapidly closing in on Earth. They were smaller than the first object, but there were more of them, dozens, maybe hundreds. "They're sending reinforcements," Richter growled, his face darkening. Miller's voice was tense. Less than 30 minutes. Elena's mind raced. They didn't have time to analyze the data fully, but the urgency of the situation forced her hand. "We need to find a way to strengthen the magnetic field," she said, her voice shaking. "If those ships are anything like the first one, the field might be our only defense." Richter nodded, already moving toward the communication array. "I'll alert command. They need to know what's coming." As he relayed the information to his superiors, Elena worked furiously at her station, pulling up every piece of research she could find on Earth's magnetic field. The problem was, no one had ever seriously considered the field as a weapon or even a defense system before now. The science behind it was poorly understood, and time was running out. Minutes passed like seconds, and the tension in the control room was palpable. The alien fleet drew closer with every passing moment, and Elena could feel the weight of the impending attack pressing down on her. She knew they were on the brink of something unprecedented. Either they would unlock the potential of Earth's magnetic field in time, or they would be overrun by an enemy far more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced. "Dr. Vasquez," Miller's voice was soft but urgent. "You need to see this." Elena glanced up, her heart skipping a beat as Miller brought up a new screen. The aliens weren't just approaching Earth, they were targeting specific locations on the planet. Their trajectory indicated a coordinated attack, focused on major population centers. It wasn't just a test anymore. This was an invasion. Richter's voice boomed through the control room as he finished his communication with Command. "We're on our own for now. Command is mobilizing defenses, but they won't get here in time. It's up to us." Elena's hands trembled as she worked, trying to connect the dots. There had to be a way to amplify the magnetic field, to harness its power in a more focused, deliberate way. But how? The field was a natural phenomenon. How could they possibly control something so vast, so fundamental to the planet's existence? Then it hit her. "Wait," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the frantic energy in the room. "The Earth's magnetic field is generated by the motion of molten iron in the core, right? What if we could manipulate that? What if we could increase the speed, or change the flow, even temporarily?" Richter stared at her. "How would we do that?" Elena's mind raced. "We could use electromagnetic pulses. If we time them right, we could send shocks through the core, accelerating the movement of the iron. It's a long shot, but if we amplify the field, it might be enough to stop them." Richter didn't hesitate. "Then let's make it happen." They worked together, Elena guiding the technical process while Richter coordinated with the observatory's engineers. Within minutes, they had rigged the facility to send out a series of controlled electromagnetic pulses, each one timed to resonate with the planet's core. As the countdown to the alien fleet's arrival ticked away, Elena's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. Either their plan would work, or they would be facing the full force of an alien invasion with nothing but conventional weapons, and they already knew those wouldn't be enough. "Pulses are ready," Miller reported, her voice steady despite the tension. "Do it," Richter ordered. Elena held her breath as Miller activated the system. The first pulse surged through the observatory's network, invisible but powerful, shooting deep into the Earth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the data on Elena's screen began to shift slowly at first, but then faster. "It's working," she whispered. "The field is strengthening." On the main screen, the alien fleet was now on the edge of the solar system, their energy signatures pulsing as they prepared for their final approach. But this time, Earth wasn't defenseless. The magnetic field flared, its strength growing exponentially with each pulse. Elena watched in awe as the field expanded, creating a shield around the planet more powerful than anything they had ever imagined. When the alien ships finally reached Earth, they met not a vulnerable planet, but a force field of unimaginable power. Their energy blasts were deflected, their ships thrown off course. The invaders had underestimated the true strength of Earth's defenses. And for the first time, humanity had harnessed the unseen power that had been protecting them all along. But Elena knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would be back, and next time they would come prepared. As the last of the alien ships retreated into the void, Richter turned to Elena, his expression grim but resolute. "We need to learn everything we can about this. If the magnetic field can do this, who knows what else it's capable of?" Elena nodded, her mind already racing with the possibilities. Earth's greatest weapon had been hidden in plain sight all along. And if so, had it been protecting them all this time? Or was it preparing for something far worse? The world was no longer the same. The once tranquil hum of everyday life had been replaced by an undercurrent of fear, confusion, and simmering unrest. With the first alien contact and the unexpected defense provided by Earth's magnetic field, governments across the globe scrambled to respond to the rapidly evolving crisis. There was no more denying the truth: Earth was not alone in the universe, and its magnetic field might be the key to humanity's survival. Inside the fortified walls of the United Nations Security Council, the air was thick with tension. Leaders from the world's most powerful nations sat around a large, circular table, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. A live feed of Earth's orbit hovered above the table, showing the remnants of the alien fleet that had been repelled by the mysterious surge in the planet's magnetic field. But the question on everyone's mind wasn't how they had survived, it was what to do next. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to come back," barked General McMillan of the U.S. Department of Defense, his fist slamming onto the table. "We have to strike first, prepare for all-out war." Across the room, French President Delacroix shook her head, her voice calm but firm. "And risk provoking them even further. We don't know what we're dealing with. These beings are technologically superior in ways we can't even fathom. We need to attempt diplomacy, at least explore the possibility of negotiation." "Negotiation?" scoffed General Nakatomi of Japan, his eyes narrowing. "They fired first. They showed us their intentions. We can't afford to appear weak." The debate raged on, voices rising and falling as the various representatives clashed over the best course of action. Warhawks like McMillan and Nakatomi advocated for preemptive strikes and the rapid militarization of Earth's defenses, while others, like President Delacroix and the British Prime Minister, argued for caution, urging the need for more information before making any rash decisions. "This is not just a matter of national security," warned Secretary General Navarro of the United Nations. "This is a planetary crisis. We need to think globally, not just act out of fear. We don't even fully understand what happened with the magnetic field, and until we do, we must be careful." At the heart of the argument was a deep uncertainty. The governments of the world had never faced a threat like this before, and the sudden involvement of Earth's magnetic field had only added to the confusion. How had the field been able to repel the alien attacks? Could it be controlled, weaponized, perhaps? And if so, how much time did they have before the aliens returned with even more devastating force? As the leaders continued to argue, a group of scientists carefully selected by an international coalition waited outside the chamber. Among them was Dr. Elena Vasquez, the woman who had first identified the magnetic field's unexpected behavior. She stood with her arms crossed, her mind racing as she listened to the muffled shouts from within the meeting room. "We're running out of time," Elena muttered to herself, her voice barely audible over the din of the debates inside. Beside her, Dr. Zhao, an expert in geophysics from China, nodded grimly. "We need to get them to focus on the science," Zhao said. "If we don't understand how the magnetic field works, it won't matter how many weapons they build or how many soldiers they mobilize." While the world's leaders were locked in debate, the public was growing increasingly restless. In an age where information could spread across the globe in seconds, it didn't take long for the news of the alien threat and the government's conflicting responses to leak to the media. Speculation ran rampant, and soon every corner of the world was abuzz with rumors, half-truths, and outright lies. Aliens are coming. Earth's defenses are crumbling. The government has known about the aliens for years, they're hiding the truth from us. Prepare for invasion, stock up on supplies. Panic spread like wildfire. Cities that had once been bustling with life now found themselves on the brink of chaos. In New York, Los Angeles, Tokyo, and London, citizens flooded supermarkets, emptying shelves as they prepared for the worst. Hospitals reported a surge in patients suffering from anxiety and stress-related conditions. Protests erupted in major cities, with angry mobs demanding transparency from their governments. In the middle of it all, the media fanned the flames. Sensational headlines screamed from every television screen and news website, fueling the growing hysteria. Conspiracy theories flourished, with some claiming that the alien threat was a government ploy to establish global martial law, while others insisted that Earth had been secretly negotiating with the aliens for years. Social media platforms were inundated with viral posts, many of which were deliberately designed to incite fear. Videos of the alien ships, heavily edited and taken out of context, were shared millions of times, each one accompanied by dire warnings of impending doom. But the real tipping point came when an anonymous source leaked classified footage of the initial attack and Earth's magnetic field repelling the alien energy blasts. The video, which showed the alien ships disintegrating upon contact with the field, only added to the frenzy. Within hours, the world was ablaze with speculation about Earth's newfound weapon. Did the government know about this all along? Is the magnetic field some kind of superweapon that they've been hiding from us? Why aren't they telling us the truth? Across the globe, trust in governments eroded at an alarming rate. Protesters clashed with police in the streets, demanding answers, while militias and extremist groups used the chaos to advance their own agendas. The world was teetering on the edge of anarchy. In the midst of the public panic and government indecision, a small but determined group of scientists quietly came together. They hailed from different fields: physics, geology, electromagnetism, and even astrophysics, but they all shared one goal: to understand the true nature of Earth's magnetic field and its potential to defend humanity from the alien threat. Leading the group was Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had become something of a reluctant figurehead after her initial discovery. Alongside her were Dr. Zhao, a renowned geophysicist from China, Dr. Ahmed Farouk, an Egyptian expert in electromagnetism, Dr. Karen Rosenberg, an astrophysicist from Israel, and Dr. Samuel Price, a physicist from the United Kingdom who specialized in particle acceleration. The group convened in a secure underground laboratory at an undisclosed location, their work funded by a coalition of governments that had agreed, albeit reluctantly, that science might offer the only hope of understanding Earth's mysterious defense mechanism. "We all know why we're here," Elena began, her voice steady as she addressed the group for the first time. "The magnetic field protected us once, but we don't know how or why. We need to figure that out, and fast. The aliens won't give us a second chance." Dr. Zhao nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We've been studying the Earth's magnetic field for centuries, but never in this context. It's always been seen as a natural phenomenon, a shield against cosmic radiation. Yes, but nothing more. Now, we're faced with the possibility that it's much more than that." Dr. Farouk leaned forward, his voice low. "What if the magnetic field isn't just a passive shield? What if it's an active defense system, something that's evolved over millions of years to protect the planet from external threats?" "That's exactly what I've been thinking," Elena replied. "When the alien ships attacked, the field didn't just deflect the energy, it adapted. It responded in real time, almost like it was anticipating the attack." "But how could that be possible?" Dr. Rosenberg interjected, her tone skeptical. "The magnetic field is generated by the movement of molten iron in the Earth's core. It's a physical process, not some kind of intelligence." "Not intelligence in the way we think of it," Dr. Price mused. "But maybe there's something about the interaction between the field and certain types of energy, something we don't fully understand yet. If we can figure out what triggers the field's response, we might be able to control it." The room fell silent as the group considered the implications of Price's words. If Earth's magnetic field could be controlled, it would change everything. No longer would humanity be at the mercy of alien invaders. They could actively defend themselves, perhaps even weaponize the field to strike back. We need to start with a full analysis of the field's behavior during the attack, Elena said, breaking the silence. We'll cross-reference it with every known variable: solar activity, gravitational shifts, electromagnetic disturbances, anything that might have influenced the field's response. And what about artificial manipulation? Dr. Zhao asked. If we can determine how the field strengthens itself, maybe we can replicate the process. Elena nodded. That's the ultimate goal, but we need to be careful. If we push too hard, we could destabilize the field, and that would be catastrophic. The scientists set to work, each of them diving into their respective areas of expertise. Data flowed between them, every piece of the puzzle slowly coming together as they worked around the clock to unlock the secrets of Earth's magnetic field. Inside the underground laboratory, the air buzzed with focused intensity. While chaos reigned outside, the group of scientists remained undeterred. They knew that humanity's survival depended on their ability to unlock the mystery of Earth's magnetic field. Hours turned into days, and the lines between time zones blurred as they worked tirelessly. The world above them was falling apart, but within these walls, they were making progress that could change everything. We've got something, Dr. Karen Rosenberg announced, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of computers. The team gathered around her, eyes glued to the screen displaying the data from the alien attack. It's not just a random surge, she continued. The magnetic field's intensity increased in direct response to the energy emitted by the alien ships. Elena frowned, staring at the graphs and readings on the monitor. You're saying the field adapted to match their energy output? Not just match, Rosenberg replied, excitement creeping into her voice. It amplified it. The aliens fired energy weapons at us, and the magnetic field absorbed the energy, strengthened itself, and then repelled their attack. Dr. Zhao leaned in, his eyes wide. That explains why their ships disintegrated. The magnetic field didn't just deflect the energy, it sent it back tenfold. A murmur of astonishment rippled through the group. If the magnetic field could do this naturally, the implications were staggering. But why now? Elena asked. Why hasn't the field reacted this way to other cosmic events? Solar flares, gamma-ray bursts, none of those triggered a similar response. Dr. Farouk rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Perhaps the field's behavior is influenced by certain types of energy. The aliens' technology might have emitted a specific frequency or wavelength that resonated with the magnetic field, causing it to react. And if that's the case, Dr. Price added, we might be able to artificially trigger that same response, turn the magnetic field into a weapon. A heavy silence settled over the group as they absorbed the gravity of what they had discovered. The magnetic field wasn't just a passive shield. It could be a weapon, a force capable of defending the planet from extraterrestrial threats. But the question remained, could they control it? Meanwhile, the situation outside the lab had spiraled further into chaos. Governments were collapsing under the weight of public pressure, unable to manage the growing unrest. Misinformation continued to spread like wildfire, fueling paranoia and violence. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States found himself besieged by protesters demanding transparency about the alien threat. The situation had grown so volatile that martial law had been declared in several major cities across the globe, but it did little to quell the anger simmering among the masses. In Moscow, the Kremlin faced a similar crisis. Russia's response to the alien threat had been swift and aggressive, with military forces on high alert. But even they could not escape the tidal wave of panic sweeping through the population. Reports of riots, looting, and mass desertions from the military had become a daily occurrence. As civil unrest raged on, the global economy teetered on the edge of collapse. Stock markets plummeted, trade came to a standstill, and supply chains were fractured as nations turned inward, focusing on their own survival. Global cooperation, already fragile, was breaking down. And through it all, the alien threat remained ever present. No one knew when or where the invaders would strike next, but everyone feared it was only a matter of time. Back in the lab, the scientists continued their work, bolstered by their recent discovery. They knew time was running out, and every second wasted could mean the difference between survival and extinction. "We need to test this," Elena said, pacing the room. "If we're right, we need to figure out how to manipulate the field, how to trigger the response on command." Dr. Price nodded. "I've already started running simulations. We're looking at different energy sources that might mimic the aliens' technology. If we can find the right one, we might be able to control the field." "But what happens if we push the field too far?" Dr. Farouk asked, his voice laced with concern. "The magnetic field is essential for life on Earth. If we destabilize it—" "We won't," Elena cut in, her eyes determined. "We have no choice but to try. The aliens will come back, and when they do, we need to be ready." For the next several days, the lab operated in overdrive. The scientists worked around the clock, running tests, analyzing data, and conducting simulations. Every breakthrough brought them closer to their goal, but it was clear that they were racing against time. The team grew more and more confident that they could artificially manipulate the field, but the risks were high. One miscalculation, one wrong move, and they could inadvertently cause catastrophic damage to the planet's delicate electromagnetic balance. But Elena and the others pressed on. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and they would not allow themselves to fail. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they were ready. "All right," Dr. Rosenberg said, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she brought up the final simulation. "We've got the energy output set to the same frequency as the alien weapons. If our theory is correct, this should trigger a localized surge in the magnetic field." The room was tense as the scientists gathered around the main console. Elena's heart raced as she watched the screen, her mind racing with the possibilities and the potential dangers. "Here we go," Rosenberg said, hitting the command to start the simulation. "Initiating energy pulse in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, nothing happened. The team held their collective breath, eyes glued to the screen. Then, slowly but surely, the magnetic field readings began to spike. "It's working," Dr. Zhao whispered, his voice filled with awe. The field's intensity continued to climb, reacting exactly as it had during the alien attack. It absorbed the simulated energy pulse and began to amplify it, just as they had predicted. "We did it," Dr. Price said, a grin spreading across his face. "We can control the field." But just as the elation of success began to set in, the alarms blared. "What's happening?" Elena demanded, her eyes darting between the flashing lights and the readings on the screen. "The field's destabilizing," Dr. Farouk shouted, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he tried to shut down the simulation. "We're losing control." Panic set in as the magnetic field's readings spiked erratically, far beyond what the team had anticipated. The very force they had sought to control was now threatening to spiral out of their grasp. "We have to abort," Elena yelled, slamming her hand down on the emergency shutdown button. The screen flickered as the simulation powered down, and the room fell into a tense silence. The team stood frozen, their hearts pounding as they processed what had just happened. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dr. Rosenberg broke the silence. "That was close," she said, her voice shaky. "Too close." Elena let out a shaky breath. "We're not ready yet," she admitted, "but we're getting closer." Despite the near disaster, the test had confirmed one thing. Earth's magnetic field could indeed be controlled. But it was clear that they still had much to learn before they could safely weaponize it. "We need more time," Dr. Price said. "We're close, but the field is far more volatile than we anticipated. We have to figure out how to stabilize it before we try again." Elena nodded. "Agreed. But time isn't on our side. The aliens won't wait for us to perfect this. They'll be back." The weight of those words settled over the group. They were closer to a solution, but the clock was still ticking. The world outside continued to unravel, and the alien threat loomed larger than ever. but the scientists had one thing they hadn't had before: a glimmer of hope. "We'll get it right," Elena said, her voice firm with resolve. "We have to." With renewed determination, the team returned to their work. The stakes had never been higher, but they knew that they were humanity's last line of defense. The world was falling apart, but within these walls, they were building something that could save it. In the void of space, where light years stretched between civilizations, the alien fleet was a terrifying spectacle. Ships larger than any human city, sleek and shining with deadly precision, glided through the cosmos. They moved with purpose, their dark hulls reflecting the starlight as they drew closer to Earth. These invaders were not new to conquest. They had subjugated entire planets and crushed rebellions across the galaxy. Their tactics were legendary, efficient, cold, and brutal. From aboard the Xanthar Dominion, the largest of the fleet, Commander Thresh studied the blue-green sphere in the distance. Earth, a backwater planet with primitive inhabitants, had somehow thwarted their initial scans and defensive strikes. It was an anomaly, something they had not encountered in all their centuries of conquest. "Prepare the primary weapons," Thresh ordered. His voice, a deep, metallic hiss, reverberated through the ship's command chamber. Alien crew members, pale and emotionless, moved with precision to carry out his commands. The humans had surprised them once. Thresh would not allow it to happen again. Fire. From the ship's underbelly, an energy weapon of unimaginable power charged, glowing brighter as it gathered strength. This was a weapon that had reduced planets to molten rubble, civilizations to dust. As the weapon discharged, a beam of blinding light shot toward Earth, crossing the distance between the alien fleet and the planet in a matter of seconds. It was a weapon designed to bypass any planetary defenses, to slice through shields and atmosphere alike, leaving nothing in its wake. But something strange happened. The moment the beam reached Earth's atmosphere, it dissipated as if it had collided with an invisible wall. The magnetic field, already on high alert after the initial attacks, reacted instantly. A brilliant aurora flared in the skies, rippling with greens, purples, and reds, as the energy was absorbed and deflected by the planet's natural defense. On the ground, people across the globe gazed upward, their eyes wide with awe and fear. The auroras that danced above them were not the usual northern or southern lights. These were vivid, pulsating waves that seemed to grow in strength and intensity with each passing second. Unbeknownst to the humans, Earth's magnetic field had just thwarted a direct attack from one of the most advanced alien civilizations in the galaxy. On the Xanthar Dominion, silence filled the command chamber. The beam had failed. Commander Thresh's many eyes narrowed as he reviewed the data on his display. It didn't make sense. No planetary defense system could neutralize their energy weapons. This primitive planet, had defied their might. "Status report," Thresh hissed, his voice dripping with cold malice. One of the alien technicians, a species bred specifically for their intelligence and technical prowess, spoke in a low, almost trembling voice. "The planet's electromagnetic shield reacted faster than anticipated. It's as if the magnetic field is alive. Commander, it's adapting to our attacks." Thresh's fist clenched, the long talons on his fingers digging into the metallic armrest of his command seat. "Alive? That's impossible. We've faced electromagnetic defenses before. They never." "Sir, we've never encountered a field like this," another technician interjected. "It's unpredictable." Thresh stood, towering over the other aliens in the command center. His dark, insect-like exoskeleton gleamed under the low lights of the room, and his multiple eyes glowed faintly as they focused on the planet below. "Then we will strike harder," Thresh said coldly. "Prepare the fleet for a full assault. Let's see if this magnetic field can withstand the full power of the Dominion." On Earth, the military had been scrambling since the initial alien contact. General Jacob Monroe, the man in charge of Earth's defense operations, stood in the central war room of the Global Defense Initiative, a coalition formed by the world's most powerful nations. The room was buzzing with activity as data from satellites and ground-based observatories poured in. The alien fleet was massive, far beyond anything their most advanced telescopes had ever detected before. Yet, miraculously, the attacks had failed. "How is this even possible?" Monroe muttered to himself as he watched the footage of the auroras, replayed again and again on the monitors. "We don't have any technology that could have done that." Next to him stood Colonel Sarah Lane, a sharp-witted officer and one of the few people Monroe trusted implicitly. "It's not a, sir. The scientists think it's the planet's magnetic field. It's adapting, strengthening itself in response to the alien attacks." Monroe raised an eyebrow. "Adapting? Since when does a natural force adapt?" Colonel Lane shrugged. "Since now, apparently." General Monroe turned to the rest of the room. "All right, people, listen up. The aliens aren't done yet. That was just a test. They'll be back, and when they come, they'll hit us with everything they've got. We need to figure out how to use this magnetic field to our advantage. Get me the scientists." In an underground bunker, far from the eyes of the public, Elena, Dr. Price, and the rest of their team were deep in discussion. The footage of the alien attack and the field's response had shaken them, but also confirmed their theories. "It's exactly what we thought," Dr. Price said, pacing the small room. "The magnetic field isn't just reacting passively, it's learning. Each time the aliens attack, the field adapts, strengthens itself, and deflects their energy." Dr. Farrak, who had been analyzing the data, nodded in agreement. "We've seen the same thing in our simulations. The field is almost behaving like a living organism, it's self-regulating, adjusting its strength based on external threats." "But how is that possible?" Elena asked. "The magnetic field is a natural phenomenon. It's not supposed to be intelligent." "I don't think it's intelligent in the way we understand intelligence," Dr. Farrak said thoughtfully. "It's more like a reflex, a built-in response to protect the planet from harm. The question is, how do we harness that?" The group fell silent as they considered the implications of what they had just witnessed. If the magnetic field could defend Earth from alien attacks, then it was the key to their survival. But understanding its full potential and learning how to control it would be a monumental task. Elena broke the silence. "We need to figure out how the alien's energy interacts with the field. If we can replicate that energy source, we might be able to enhance the field ourselves, make it even stronger." "And weaponize it," Dr. Price added grimly. "We could turn the planet's natural defenses into an offensive capability." It was a dangerous idea, but the more they discussed it, the more it seemed like their best shot. The magnetic field was the only thing standing between Earth and complete annihilation. Elena glanced at the monitors, where the alien fleet hovered ominously in space. "We don't have much time. We need to get ahead of this." Back on the Xanthar Dominion, Commander Thresh was growing impatient. He had expected Earth to be an easy conquest, but this strange defense mechanism had thrown a wrench into his plans. Still, he was confident that it was only a matter of time before the humans' defenses crumbled. "We've recalibrated the weapons to bypass the electromagnetic interference," one of his subordinates reported. "The next strike will be more powerful." Thresh nodded. "Good. Prepare the fleet for a coordinated assault. This planet will fall." He stared at Earth on the display, his many eyes narrowing. The humans were resilient, but they had never faced a force like the Dominion. Soon, their planet would be his. As the fleet began its preparations for the next attack, Commander Thresh allowed himself a cold, predatory smile. The humans would not defy him for long. But unbeknownst to him, Earth's magnetic field was not done adapting, and neither were the humans. In the war room, General Monroe stood before a large holographic map of the Earth, with representations of the alien fleet hovering just outside the atmosphere. "The scientists believe we can harness the magnetic field as a weapon," Monroe said, addressing his top officers. "If we can amplify it in the right way, we might be able to destroy the alien ships without firing a single missile." Colonel Lane nodded. "We've already begun coordinating with the scientists. They're working on ways to artificially boost the field's strength in key areas. We'll use the aliens' own energy against them. Monroe crossed his arms. This is our best shot. If we fail, there won't be a second chance. The room fell silent. They all understood the gravity of the situation. The aliens had come to conquer, and humanity had no choice but to fight back with the planet itself as their ultimate weapon. As the final preparations were made, Earth braced for the aliens' first full-scale strike. But this time, humanity wouldn't just be defending itself, it would be fighting back. The Xanthar Dominion had encountered many unexpected variables in their campaign of galactic conquest, but none as peculiar as Earth's magnetic field. The initial assaults had been repelled, their weapons rendered useless by the planet's powerful, adaptive shield. Commander Thresh stood on the bridge of the Dominion, his many eyes scanning the holographic representation of Earth. Conventional methods have failed, he hissed to his advisors. If brute force cannot penetrate their defenses, we will undermine them from within. His lieutenants nodded, their pale, featureless faces betraying no emotion. The Xanthar were not a species driven by passion or honor, they were efficient conquerors. If a direct approach was impossible, subterfuge would take its place. Thresh turned to his infiltration specialist, a spindly creature named Vrax. Vrax's entire existence revolved around stealth and sabotage, slipping into the shadows and dismantling civilizations from within. Deploy the infiltrators, Thresh commanded. Find their weaknesses. Disable their defenses. Vrax inclined his head in acknowledgement and slithered from the room. Within the hour, small, sleek pods barely detectable by Earth's most advanced radars were launched from the alien mothership. These pods, no larger than a small human vehicle, descended through Earth's atmosphere, cloaked in stealth technology that hid them from detection. Their mission was clear: sabotage Earth's defenses and cripple their newfound reliance on the magnetic field. As the pods approached the planet, they split up, targeting key military installations, research labs, and power grids. The infiltrators, small, insectoid beings with the ability to blend into their surroundings, emerged from the pods and began their silent work. In a secured military facility deep underground, General Monroe had been going over defense strategies when the alarms went off. "What now?" he muttered, rushing to the central command center. Colonel Lane was already at the console, scanning the screens. "We've got reports of system malfunctions across several key facilities," she said. "Communications, radar, and even some of the labs working on the magnetic field tech are reporting issues." Monroe frowned. "It's too coincidental. The aliens must have found another way to strike." A few hours later, a report came in from a surveillance team stationed at one of the sabotage facilities. The footage showed blurry, insect-like creatures moving quickly through the shadows, bypassing security systems and leaving a trail of disruption in their wake. "We have a breach," Monroe said grimly. "The aliens couldn't get through the magnetic field, so they're here, on the ground." As the news spread, panic began to take hold within the military and scientific communities. The alien infiltrators were a new, unpredictable threat, and Earth's initial victories felt fragile in the face of this new tactic. In response to the infiltration, military and scientific teams scrambled to develop new defenses. Dr. Price and Elena, along with other leading scientists, had been working tirelessly on the magnetic field project. Now, their focus shifted. "We can't just rely on the magnetic field to defend us from space," Dr. Price said during an emergency meeting. "We need to use it here, on the ground." Elena, exhausted but determined, was already deep in thought. "What about electromagnetic pulses, EMPs powered by the magnetic field? If we can weaponize the field to emit short, targeted bursts of energy, we could disrupt the aliens' stealth tech and their ability to sabotage our systems." The team immediately began working on the idea. Using the planet's natural magnetic energy, they theorized they could create EMP weapons far more powerful than anything humanity had previously developed. These weapons wouldn't just disable electronics, they would overload the infiltrators' systems, rendering them vulnerable. In secret labs across the world, prototypes were built. Small, portable EMP devices were tested, and within days, they had a working model. Colonel Lane was quick to implement the new technology. Deploy these EMP units to every major facility. If the infiltrators strike again, we'll be ready. But the EMP devices weren't just defensive. Lane had another idea in mind to counterattack. If we can locate the infiltrators, we'll hunt them down. We won't just defend Earth, we'll take the fight to them. As the infiltrators continued to sabotage key facilities, divisions began to emerge within the ranks of Earth's leadership. The initial unity that had defined the early days of the crisis was beginning to fracture. In the halls of the Global Defense Initiative, where political and military leaders from around the world gathered to coordinate their efforts, arguments grew more heated by the day. "Look at what's happening," one world leader shouted during a tense meeting. "The aliens are inside our borders, disabling our systems. We're not prepared for this level of infiltration." "We need to consider diplomacy," another leader suggested. "These aliens are clearly far more advanced than we are. If we continue down this path, we might provoke an all-out war, one we cannot win." General Monroe slammed his fist on the table, silencing the room. "There's no negotiating with these aliens. We've seen their ships, their weapons. They've come to conquer, not to talk." "But what if we can communicate with them?" one scientist from the civilian sector asked. "We haven't even tried to establish contact. Maybe they don't understand that we're willing to cooperate." "Cooperate," Monroe growled. "They've infiltrated our defenses, sabotaged our systems. What makes you think they want to negotiate?" Colonel Lane, always pragmatic, interjected. "I understand the concern, but we don't have the luxury of waiting for diplomacy. The infiltrators are a real, immediate threat. If we don't stop them now, we won't have anything left to negotiate with." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. The reality was clear: humanity was on the brink of a war for its very survival, and the divisions among its leaders only made the situation more precarious. A week after the initial infiltrator landings, the first counterattack was launched. Using advanced surveillance equipment and newly developed EMP weapons, Colonel Lane led a team of elite soldiers to a remote facility where infiltrators had been spotted. The plan was simple: draw the aliens into a trap and disable them with a concentrated EMP burst. Lane's team moved swiftly through the night, their eyes scanning for any sign of the infiltrators. The creatures were difficult to spot. They moved silently, blending into their surroundings almost perfectly. But the soldiers had the advantage of surprise. Suddenly, the faint shimmer of movement caught Lane's eye. She signaled to her team, who quickly deployed the EMP device. With a high-pitched whine, the device activated, sending out a powerful pulse of magnetic energy. The infiltrators, caught in the blast, flickered into visibility, their cloaking technology shorting out. They writhed in pain, their bodies spasming as the EMP disrupted their systems. Lane didn't hesitate. She and her team opened fire, cutting down the disoriented aliens before they could recover. Back in the command center, General Monroe watched the mission unfold in real time on the monitors. A grim smile crossed his face. "It's a start," he muttered. While the military focused on combating the infiltrators, tensions within the human leadership continued to grow. Protests erupted in several major cities, with civilians demanding answers from their governments. Leaks about the alien threat had led to public paranoia, and conspiracy theories were spreading like wildfire. Some believed the governments were hiding the truth about the aliens' intentions. Others feared that Earth's reliance on the magnetic field would lead to a catastrophic disaster. In the midst of the chaos, a new political faction began to emerge, one advocating for diplomacy with the aliens. They argued that humanity's aggressive response was only escalating the situation, and that peaceful negotiation was the only way to avoid total annihilation. But their voices were drowned out by the more hawkish elements of Earth's leadership, who were pushing for complete militarization. As the infiltrators continued their sabotage, the pressure to fight back grew stronger. Elena and her team of scientists found themselves caught in the middle of this growing conflict. They had been working tirelessly to develop new technologies, but the moral implications of their work weighed heavily on them. "We're turning Earth's magnetic field into a weapon," Elena said one night as she and Dr. Price reviewed the latest data. "But is that really the right path? We don't even fully understand what we're dealing with." Price sighed. "I know, Elena. But what choice do we have? The aliens aren't here to talk. They're here to conquer. We can't just sit back and let that happen." Elena nodded, but the unease in her chest wouldn't go away. The world was changing, and humanity was being forced to change with it. The question was, at what cost? As Earth's leaders debated and humanity's divisions deepened, the alien infiltrators continued their work, slowly unraveling Earth's defenses from within. The final confrontation was drawing closer, and both sides were preparing for what would come next. Elena sat alone in the lab, her eyes fixed on the swirling lines of magnetic field data displayed on the screen before her. For days, she and her team had been working on a way to weaponize Earth's magnetic field. The infiltrators' sabotage had slowed them down, but the recent success with the AMP counterattack had given them hope. Still, there was something nagging at her mind, a potential she had yet to fully comprehend. The lab was quiet except for the hum of equipment, and her fingers tapped nervously on the keyboard as she ran yet another simulation. The data points aligned almost perfectly, as if the field were responding. "Wait a minute," she whispered to herself, her eyes widening. The field wasn't just adapting passively, it was shifting, strengthening in response to the alien attacks. Not only was it protecting the planet, but it could also be manipulated. Elena quickly pulled up the team's most recent findings and compared them against historical records of magnetic fluctuations. The patterns were unmistakable. Earth's magnetic field wasn't just a shield, it was an untapped energy source, far more powerful than they had realized. Her hands flew across the keys as she sent an urgent message to Dr. Price. Within minutes, he rushed into the lab, his expression concerned. "You found something?" Elena nodded, her excitement barely contained. "I think we've been looking at this all wrong. The field, it's not just reacting to external threats. It can be controlled. If we can manipulate it, we could turn the entire magnetic field into a weapon." Dr. Price stared at her for a moment before a slow smile spread across his face. "You mean, we could use the Earth itself to fight back?" Elena grinned. "Exactly. We can harness the field's energy and direct it at the aliens. Their technology relies on delicate electromagnetic systems, right? We could disrupt them, cripple their ships, their weapons, everything." The team went to work immediately. Using data from previous EMP experiments, Elena and the scientists began designing a prototype weapon that could harness and channel the magnetic field's energy. They called it the Gauntlet, a device that could draw power directly from the Earth's magnetic lines and unleash it as a focused, high-intensity electromagnetic pulse. Unlike conventional EMPs, the Gauntlet would be capable of selectively targeting alien technology, shutting it down without damaging Earth's infrastructure. "This could be the game-changer we need," Colonel Lane said as she watched the scientist work. "But we need to test it fast." The first prototype was rudimentary, cobbled together with whatever materials they could find, but it was functional. They tested it in a remote desert facility, using captured alien drones to simulate the technology they'd face in battle. Elena and Dr. Price watched anxiously as the device powered up. The air around them crackled with energy as the field lines converged on the prototype. Then, with a low hum, the Gauntlet fired, sending out a wave of invisible energy. The alien drones fizzled, their systems shutting down instantly. The team erupted in cheers. "It works," Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe. Colonel Lane nodded. "Good. Now let's build a few more of these and get ready for the real test." The success of the Gauntlet couldn't have come at a better time. Across the globe, alien attacks were escalating. Commander Thresh, still on board the Dominion, had grown increasingly agitated by Earth's continued resistance. He had underestimated these humans, and that mistake had cost him dearly. "They've adapted faster than expected," Thresh snarled, pacing before the tactical display. "But it won't matter. We'll crush them." His lieutenants exchanged nervous glances. Thresh's cold, methodical demeanor had given way to frustration, and the humans' success with their magnetic shield had thrown the invasion into disarray. "If we can't disable their shield from the outside, we'll change the planet itself," Thresh continued. "Prepare the polar shift technology. We'll destabilize their magnetic poles, throw the field into chaos. Let's see them fight back when their precious defense turns on them." The Xanthar ships moved into position, preparing to deploy advanced technology that would alter the flow of Earth's magnetic field. If successful, they would disrupt not only the shield, but the very fabric of the planet's natural defenses. On Earth, seismic activity began to spike, and scientists scrambled to understand what was happening. It didn't take long for them to piece it together. "They're trying to shift the poles," Elena said in disbelief. "If they succeed, Earth's magnetic field will collapse. We'll be defenseless." Colonel Lane immediately called for an emergency meeting. "We need to stop them now." With the fate of the planet hanging in the balance, the military launched an all-out offensive. Armed with several newly built gauntlets, humanity prepared to repel the next wave of alien attacks. But this time, they weren't just defending, they were fighting back. Colonel Lane stood on a fortified command deck, overlooking the battlefield. "This is it," she said over the comms. "We need to take down their primary ship before they complete the shift." From hidden bunkers and military bases across the globe, teams of soldiers wielding gauntlets emerged, moving quickly toward the alien fleet. As the alien ships descended, massive energy beams shot toward the ground, attempting to destabilize the poles. The air crackled with the growing intensity of magnetic disruption, and the Earth itself seemed to tremble under the assault. But humanity fought back. At a key facility in the Arctic, Elena and Dr. Price coordinated the defense, working closely with military forces to deploy the gauntlets. The first wave of attacks from the Xanthar ships hit the magnetic field, but unlike before, Earth's defense didn't just absorb the energy, it redirected it. "Fire!" Lane shouted. The gauntlets unleashed their power, sending focused electromagnetic pulses toward the alien ships. The pulses traveled along the natural lines of the magnetic field, amplifying their strength as they converged on the target. Alien ships sparked and sputtered, their advanced systems failing in the face of the overwhelming electromagnetic energy. The massive vessels began to drift, their weapons going offline as the field wrapped around them like an invisible noose. Commander Thresh, watching from his command ship, was stunned. His fleet, the pride of the Xanthar Dominion, was failing. He had underestimated these humans again. They had not only defended their planet, but had harnessed its natural power to strike back. On the ground, cheers erupted as one of the largest alien ships crashed into the ocean, its systems completely disabled. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had struck a decisive blow against the invaders. Elena could hardly believe it. "We did it," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Colonel Lane's voice crackled over the radio. "First major victory, people. But don't get too comfortable. There's still more to come." News of the victory spread quickly, and for the first time in months, there was a sense of hope. Governments that had been on the brink of collapse stabilized as people began to rally behind their leaders. Military forces around the world, once overwhelmed by the alien threat, began to regroup and plan counterattacks. Humanity had proven that it could fight back. The magnetic field, once a passive defense, had become their greatest weapon, and with the development of the gauntlet, Earth was no longer simply reacting to the alien invasion, it was actively pushing them back. But deep in space, the Xanthar fleet still loomed. Thresh, though beaten, was far from defeated. "We may have lost the battle," he growled to his remaining officers, "but we will win the war." And so, the stage was set for the next phase of the conflict, a war for Earth's survival, where both sides would bring everything they had to the fight. The aftermath of the first major victory against the Xanthar brought not only relief but also rising internal discord. The success of the gauntlets had shifted the balance of power, but it had also intensified debates over the ethics of weaponizing Earth's magnetic field. In a high-security conference room in the United Nations headquarters, representatives from various nations gathered to discuss the implications of the new technology. The room was filled with tension as leaders debated the morality of using such a powerful weapon. "We've pushed back the aliens," General Monroe said firmly, addressing the assembly. "But we must consider the long-term consequences. We're manipulating a force of nature. What happens if our actions destabilize the planet?" Dr. Price, standing at the side of the room, added, "The magnetic field is crucial to Earth's stability. We've harnessed it for defense, but there are risks. If we overuse this technology, we could cause unintended environmental damage." One delegate, a prominent environmental scientist, stood up. "We're talking about using Earth's core energy as a weapon. What if it disrupts the planet's natural processes? We could be trading short-term survival for long-term disaster." The room erupted in voices, some supporting continued use of the technology to ensure human survival, others arguing for restraint. The debate was heated, with ethical concerns clashing against the practical need to defend against an ongoing invasion. Elena, listening to the arguments, felt a growing sense of unease. She had dedicated herself to protecting Earth, but the realization that they might be jeopardizing the planet's stability weighed heavily on her. While the debate raged on, the Xanthar had not been idle. Commander Thresh, realizing that their direct assaults had been unsuccessful, had turned to a different strategy, subverting humanity from within. Using their advanced technology to tap into human communications, the aliens identified individuals and groups susceptible to manipulation. They promised power and influence to those who would help them undermine Earth's defenses. A clandestine meeting took place in an abandoned warehouse, where a small group of rogue scientists and military personnel gathered. Among them was Dr. Marcus Jansen, a disgruntled scientist who had been frustrated by the slow progress of his research and disillusioned by the constant political infighting. The Xanthar emissary, a sleek, humanoid figure with piercing eyes, addressed the group. "We understand your dissatisfaction. We offer you a chance to seize control. Sabotage the research on the magnetic field, and we will grant you power beyond your imagination." Jansen and the others listened, their greed and anger clouding their judgment. The aliens had promised them not only wealth, but also positions of authority in the new order they envisioned. The prospect of power was too tempting to resist. "Consider it done," Jansen said, a cold smile forming on his lips. The following days saw a series of coordinated attacks on key magnetic field research stations. Critical equipment was damaged, data was erased, and the progress that humanity had made in harnessing the magnetic field for defense was set back by weeks, if not months. The sabotage was sophisticated, executed with precision, and left no clear trace of its origin. The perpetrators had covered their tracks well, but the damage was undeniable. Elena and Dr. Price were stunned by the sudden setbacks, struggling to piece together what had gone wrong. Amidst the chaos, Elena faced a personal crisis. The sabotage had not only stalled their research, but had also intensified the ethical debates about the use of the magnetic field as a weapon. Her colleagues were divided, and the weight of their decisions seemed heavier than ever. One evening, Elena sat alone in her apartment, the city's lights flickering through the window as a constant reminder of the ongoing conflict. Her thoughts were consumed by the ramifications of their actions. The magnetic field was a powerful resource, but its weaponization had profound implications for the planet's future. She replayed her conversations with Dr. Price and General Monroe, the debates with world leaders, and the grim faces of those affected by the sabotage. The very technology they had developed to protect Earth now seemed like a double-edged sword. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Price. "We need to talk. Urgent." Meeting him at a secluded cafe, Elena's face was pale, her emotions barely contained. Dr. Price could see the turmoil in her eyes. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," Elena said quietly. "The more we use the magnetic field, the more I worry about the long-term consequences. What if our actions are causing irreparable harm?" Dr. Price nodded, understanding her distress. "I know how you feel, but we're in a tough spot. The aliens are relentless. If we don't fight back, we lose everything. I wish there was another way." Elena's voice trembled as she spoke. "But at what cost? We're weaponizing the very force that sustains our planet. There has to be a balance, a way to defend ourselves without destroying the Earth." Dr. Price reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this. We have to find a way to resolve these issues, both the immediate threat and the long-term consequences. We can't let the aliens manipulate us, and we can't lose sight of our moral compass." Elena nodded, her resolve strengthening even as she struggled with her inner conflict. "I'll do everything I can to fix this, but we need to find out who's behind the sabotage. We need to expose them." Back in the research labs, Elena and Dr. Price worked tirelessly to investigate the recent sabotage. They combed through security footage, analyzed the patterns of damage, and interviewed staff members. Suspicion began to fall on a few individuals who had been unusually active around the time of the attacks. One night, as Elena reviewed surveillance footage, she noticed something strange, a pattern of activity linked to Dr. Jansen and a few other rogue scientists. It was clear that they had been involved in the sabotage. Elena and Dr. Price compiled their findings and presented them to General Monroe. "We've identified the saboteurs," Elena said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Dr. Jansen and his associates have been working with the aliens." Monroe's expression hardened. "I want them found and detained immediately. We can't afford any more setbacks." A swift operation was launched, and the rogue group was apprehended before they could do further damage. The Xanthar emissary, who had been working behind the scenes, was also captured, revealing the depth of the alien manipulation. With the saboteurs in custody, the immediate threat was contained. The research stations were repaired, and efforts to advance the magnetic field weaponization resumed. But the damage had been done. Trust within the scientific community had been shaken, and the debate over the ethical use of the technology continued. As the repairs were underway and the immediate crisis subsided, Elena knew that their work was far from over. The sabotage had highlighted the vulnerability of their defenses and the profound moral dilemmas they faced. The questions about the ethics of weaponizing Earth's magnetic field persisted, and the internal conflicts among humanity had not been fully resolved. In a final meeting with Dr. Price and General Monroe, Elena spoke with determination. "We've taken a significant step forward, but we need to ensure that our technology is used responsibly. We can't let fear or desperation drive us to destroy what we're trying to protect." Monroe nodded. "We're fighting an existential threat, but we must also think about the future. We need to establish safeguards to ensure that our technology is used wisely and that we don't cause harm to our planet." Dr. Price added, "We'll continue our work, but we'll also work to rebuild trust and ensure that our actions are guided by both our immediate needs and our long-term responsibilities." As the group disbanded, Elena felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but they had made progress. Humanity had shown resilience and resourcefulness in the face of an unprecedented crisis. The battle for Earth was far from over, but with determination, ethical resolve, and unity, they had a chance to turn the tide and secure their future. And as the stars continued to shine above, the struggle between humanity and the Xanthar raged on, a fight for survival, for power, and for the very essence of what it meant to be human in the face of an alien threat. In the cold expanse of space, the Xanthar fleet had entered a new phase of their invasion strategy. Amidst their massive warships and advanced technology, they introduced their latest weapon, a sophisticated artificial intelligence known as OMGUS. Designed to be the ultimate tactical advisor, OMGUS was an unparalleled strategic asset, capable of analyzing complex scenarios and devising countermeasures with chilling precision. The eye's interface flickered on the command deck of the Dominion, projecting a holographic display of Earth and its surrounding space. Commander Thresh, his frustration from previous failures now replaced by a grim determination, observed the display with a steely gaze. Omgus, analyze Earth's magnetic field defenses and propose a method to neutralize them, Thresh ordered. Omgus's digital voice was calm and calculating. Analyzing. The magnetic field is a formidable defense mechanism. Our initial attacks have proven ineffective. New approach required. The eye's display zoomed in on various points around Earth, its algorithms calculating and recalculating strategies. Omgus began to formulate a plan to disable the magnetic field, focusing on disrupting its energy sources and creating anomalies that could potentially collapse the field's stability. As the AI processed the data, the Xanthar fleet began to deploy new technology designed to counteract the magnetic field. Small, stealthy probes were launched to map the field's fluctuations and identify vulnerabilities. The stakes had risen. The eye's analysis threatened to render Earth's magnetic defenses obsolete. Back on Earth, the revelation of the eye's existence and its role in devising strategies to counter the magnetic field caused an immediate and intense response. The news hit the global military and scientific communities with the force of a tidal wave. The Xanthar had escalated their tactics, and humanity needed to respond with equal ingenuity. General Monroe convened an emergency meeting with the top military and scientific minds. The atmosphere was thick with urgency and tension. "We're dealing with a level of sophistication we haven't seen before," Monroe began. "This AI could potentially outthink any strategy we devise. We need to adapt our tactics quickly." Dr. Price stepped forward, holding a digital tablet displaying a holographic model of Earth's magnetic field. "We've developed a concept for magnetic trap zones. By creating areas in space where we can concentrate magnetic energy, we can potentially disrupt the alien ship's navigation and energy systems." The concept involved deploying satellites and spaceborne devices capable of generating localized magnetic fields. These trap zones would act as interference fields, creating chaotic magnetic environments that could disorient and disable the alien fleet. The goal was to create zones in key strategic locations where the Xanthar ships would be forced to navigate through intense magnetic disturbances, hampering their movements and capabilities. Colonel Lane, who had been quiet during the initial discussion, spoke up. "We'll need to coordinate this with our ground defenses. The trap zones should complement our existing strategies, not replace them. We can't afford any missteps." Teams were immediately mobilized to develop and deploy the necessary technology for the trap zones. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, designing and launching the magnetic field generators into orbit. The first few prototypes were deployed successfully, creating localized fields that generated significant magnetic disturbances. The results were promising. Alien scouts and probes began to report anomalies in the magnetic field, and early tests indicated that the trap zones had the desired effect of disorienting and slowing down the alien ships. Despite the progress, the situation remained dire. The recent setbacks and the looming threat of Omgus had exposed deep rifts within the human ranks. The ongoing debates over the ethics of weaponizing the magnetic field had led to divisions, and some factions continued to advocate for diplomacy or limited engagement. But the new threat posed by the AI forced humanity to confront its divisions and focus on a unified strategy. The potential for complete collapse if the Xanthar succeeded in neutralizing the magnetic field made it clear that the survival of Earth depended on a combined effort. Elena, reflecting on the recent chaos and personal dilemmas, recognized the need for unity. She reached out to various factions and leaders, urging them to set aside differences and work together. "We can't afford to be divided," Elena said during a pivotal meeting with leaders from different sectors. "Our survival depends on how well we coordinate our efforts. We've developed new technology, but we need to integrate it with our existing defenses and strategies." General Monroe, echoing Elena's sentiments, addressed the assembly. "We've faced setbacks, but we've also made significant advances. We need to put aside our disagreements and focus on the common goal, defeating the Xanthar and protecting our planet. The meeting was intense, with many voices expressing concerns and frustrations. But as the discussions continued, a consensus began to form. Leaders from various nations and factions agreed to collaborate on a unified defense strategy, combining their resources and expertise to enhance their capabilities. Teams were restructured to facilitate better communication and cooperation. The scientific community, military leaders, and political figures worked together to refine the deployment of the trap zones and integrate them with ground-based defenses. Strategic plans were revised to account for the new tactics and technologies, ensuring a coordinated approach. Elena and Dr. Price played key roles in bridging gaps between different groups, emphasizing the importance of a unified front. Their efforts helped to foster a sense of solidarity and determination among the human defenders. As the trap zones were finalized and deployed, humanity prepared for the next phase of the conflict. The new strategy aimed to create a web of magnetic interference around Earth, making it increasingly difficult for the Xanthar fleet to navigate and launch effective attacks. The anticipation was palpable as the final adjustments were made. Satellites and magnetic field generators were positioned in strategic locations, creating a network of trap zones that covered critical areas of space around Earth. Dr. Price and Elena stood on the command deck of one of the newly established space stations, overseeing the final preparations. The vast expanse of space stretched before them, a canvas of potential and peril. "It's all in place," Dr. Price said, his voice filled with cautious optimism. "We've done everything we can. Now it's up to the AI and the Xanthar fleet to respond." Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars. "We've faced challenges and setbacks, but we've also demonstrated our resilience and ingenuity. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As the final deployment was completed, the trap zones began to emit their magnetic pulses, creating a complex and disorienting field around Earth. The new defense system was ready to confront the Xanthar fleet and their formidable AI. The stage was set for the next battle, a confrontation that would test the limits of human ingenuity and unity. The struggle against the alien invaders had entered a critical phase, and the outcome would determine the fate of Earth and its defenders. And as the cosmic dance of conflict continued, humanity stood poised at the edge of an uncertain future, united in its determination to protect its home and defeat the threat that loomed beyond the stars. As the threat of an imminent alien attack loomed ever larger, Earth's global community had to marshal its collective resources and ingenuity. The recent developments had underscored the need for a coordinated, all-out effort to protect the planet. Governments, scientific institutions, and industries worldwide mobilized, pooling their resources to develop a defense grid capable of leveraging the full power of Earth's magnetic field. The United Nations called an emergency summit, bringing together leaders from every major nation, along with top scientists and engineers. The summit took place in a secure underground facility, designed to withstand both terrestrial and extraterrestrial threats. The walls were lined with screens displaying real-time data, maps, and projections. General Monroe stood at the head of the table, flanked by Dr. Price and Elena, who had become key figures in the defense initiative. The atmosphere was a mix of urgency and determination as the leaders discussed their final strategies. "We've succeeded in deploying the magnetic trap zones," Monroe said, his voice resolute. "But we need a more robust defense mechanism to counter the alien superweapon that's coming our way. We're talking about a planetary defense grid that can directly harness and amplify the magnetic field's power." Dr. Price nodded, projecting a hologram of the proposed defense grid. "The concept is to create a planetary network of magnetic field generators that work in concert to form a stable, planet-wide shield. This grid will be powered by a combination of terrestrial and space-based energy sources, allowing us to maintain a constant, high-level magnetic field. Engineers and scientists from around the world work day and night to build and deploy the grid. Massive energy transfer stations were constructed, and existing infrastructure was retrofitted to support the new defense system. satellites were launched to create a network of generators in orbit, designed to work with ground-based units to form an interconnected shield. The global effort was nothing short of extraordinary. Resources were pooled, borders were temporarily dissolved, and humanity's collective ingenuity was on full display. The defense grid was rapidly coming together, but the time until the final battle was running short. As Earth's defenses neared completion, the Xanthar fleet prepared to unveil their most formidable weapon yet. OMGUS, the alien AI, had been analyzing Earth's magnetic field and had designed a superweapon capable of disrupting it. This weapon was intended to cripple Earth's defenses and leave the planet vulnerable to a full-scale invasion. The superweapon, known as the Nullifier, was a massive construct, hidden within one of the largest Xanthar warships. It was equipped with advanced technology designed to emit a concentrated wave of energy that could destabilize the magnetic field on a planetary scale. If activated, the Nullifier could create a temporary but critical gap in Earth's defenses, allowing the alien fleet to strike with overwhelming force. In the command center of the Dominion, Commander Thresh watched as OMGUS detailed the weapon's capabilities. The eye's holographic display showed the Nullifier's projected impact on Earth's magnetic field. Once activated, the Nullifier will create a ripple effect that will weaken the magnetic shield, OMGUS explained. The disruption will last long enough to allow our fleet to breach the defenses and commence a full-scale assault. Thresh's eyes narrowed with grim satisfaction. Prepare the weapon for deployment. Ensure that the activation sequence is synchronized with our main assault. Earth's defenses are formidable, but this weapon will turn the tide in our favor. The Xanthar fleet began its final preparations, positioning the Nullifier for its critical role in the impending attack. The alien forces readied their ships for the assault, their confidence bolstered by the expected success of their superweapon. Back on Earth, Elena and Dr. Price were deeply immersed in finalizing their own desperate measures. The newly deployed planetary defense grid was nearly operational, but they faced one last hurdle, ensuring that the system could withstand the impact of the Nullifier and effectively repel the alien assault. In their high-tech lab, Elena and Dr. Price worked alongside a team of scientists and engineers. They were refining the defense grid's energy modulation and power distribution systems to ensure maximum efficiency. The final adjustments were critical. The grid needed to be robust enough to handle the alien superweapon's assault while maintaining a stable defense shield. "This is it," Elena said, her voice filled with determination. "We've got to make sure that our grid can adapt to the Nullifier's impact. If it can't handle the disruption, we're in serious trouble." Dr. Price nodded, his face lined with fatigue but resolute. "We've incorporated adaptive algorithms into the grid's control systems. They'll adjust the magnetic field in real time to counteract the disruption caused by the Nullifier. It's a long shot, but it's our best option." As they worked, the tension was palpable. The team faced mounting pressure as the final countdown to the battle drew near. Elena's mind raced with thoughts of what was at stake: the survival of Earth, the future of humanity, and the ethical implications of their actions. "We've come so far," Elena said quietly to Dr. Price. "We've faced so many challenges and setbacks, but we're on the brink of something monumental. We have to believe that this will work." Dr. Price looked at her with a mix of resolve and concern. "We've done everything we can. Now it's up to the system and the people defending it." With the final test complete and the planetary defense grid operational, Earth was ready for the final battle. The interconnected network of magnetic generators was activated, forming a protective shield around the planet. The defense system was designed to harness and amplify the magnetic field's energy, creating a formidable barrier against the alien threat. The stage was set for the climactic confrontation. As the Xanthar fleet prepared to launch their assault, Earth's defenders braced for the ultimate test of their combined strength and resolve. The battle would determine the fate of the planet and the future of humanity. In the final hours before the conflict, Elena took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. The unity and determination of humanity had been tested in ways they had never imagined, but they had come together to face an existential threat. As the sky darkened and the stars became more visible, Elena knew that the coming battle would be the defining moment of their struggle. The defense grid hummed with power, the planetary shield ready to confront the Xanthar fleet and their devastating superweapon. The countdown to the final battle had begun, and humanity's fate hung in the balance. With unwavering resolve and a united front, they prepared to face the ultimate challenge and defend their home from the alien invasion that threatened to extinguish their world. The final hours before the battle unfolded like a cinematic montage, each scene a testament to human resilience and determination. As the world braced for the impending clash with the Xanthar fleet, each character prepared for the pivotal moment in their own way, their actions weaving together into a tapestry of hope and unity. General Monroe stood at the command center, his gaze fixed on the vast expanse of space displayed on the panoramic screens. The hum of activity filled the room as officers and analysts reviewed final battle plans. Monroe's face, etched with lines of experience, bore a look of calm determination. He moved through the bustling command center, offering words of encouragement to his team. "We've worked tirelessly for this moment. Trust in the plans, trust in the technology, and trust in each other." Monroe paused at a window, watching as the planetary defense grid's activation lights blinked into life. The grid's energy was now harnessed and ready, a tangible symbol of humanity's collective effort. Dr. Price, with sleeves rolled up and face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays, worked alongside Elena and their team. The lab was a hive of activity, with scientists calibrating equipment, running final simulations, and ensuring that the defense grid would perform flawlessly. Elena adjusted the final parameters of the magnetic field generators, her eyes reflecting the intensity of her focus. "We've designed this system to adapt and respond in real time. It's our best shot, and it's all we have." As Elena finished her adjustments, she looked around at her team, each member absorbed in their tasks. Their shared determination was palpable. Despite the exhaustion, they moved with purpose, knowing the stakes. In a high-tech engineering bay, a team of engineers prepared the magnetic generators for deployment. Sparks flew as welders worked on the final assembly, and the rhythmic clang of machinery filled the air. The engineers, wearing protective gear and face masks, operated with precision, their focus unwavering. Among them was one of the leading engineers, Maria Sanchez, who checked the calibration of a critical generator module. She paused for a moment, looking at the assembled team. "We're about to test our design in the harshest conditions possible. Let's make sure every detail is perfect." Maria's voice was steady, her confidence bolstering the team's morale. They continued their work, ensuring that every piece of technology would function under the immense pressure of the upcoming battle. The control room was a hub of activity, with operators and technicians manning consoles and monitoring systems. The screens displayed real-time data from the deployed trap zones, showing their interactions with the magnetic field. Sophia Kim, a young operator, was absorbed in her tasks. She adjusted the controls and verified data feeds, ensuring that the trap zones were functioning as intended. "Everything looks green. We're ready for whatever they throw at us." Sophia's fingers danced over the controls, and she took a deep breath, her expression reflecting a mixture of nerves and excitement. Her commitment to the mission was unwavering, and she knew the importance of her role in the defense effort. Colonel Lane and his team of soldiers and pilots prepared for the engagement. The front lines were a flurry of activity, with troops and aircraft being equipped and briefed. Lane's leadership was evident as he coordinated with his team, providing last-minute instructions and encouragement. "We're about to face a challenge like no other," Lane said, addressing his troops. "Stay sharp, follow your training, and remember that we fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone back on Earth." Lane's words resonated with the soldiers, who nodded in agreement, their resolve steeled by the knowledge of their mission's importance. In the refugee shelters, families and individuals huddled together, their lives disrupted by the alien threat. Volunteers and aid workers provided comfort and support, doing their best to alleviate the stress and fear. Among the volunteers was Emma Lai, who comforted a young child, offering a reassuring smile. "We're all in this together. The people fighting out there are working hard to keep us safe. We just need to stay strong." Emma's kindness provided a beacon of hope for those in the shelters, reminding them that even in the darkest moments, humanity's spirit remained unbroken. As the defense grid and trap zones came online, satellites and space stations positioned themselves in orbit, ready to deploy their defensive measures. The view from space showed Earth's shield forming, a protective aura surrounding the planet. Astronauts on the space station, including Commander Elena Rodriguez, conducted final checks on their equipment and systems. Elena looked out at the Earth below, her face filled with a sense of awe and responsibility. "We're about to make history," Elena said to her fellow astronauts. "We've come so far, and now we need to give it everything we've got." The astronauts nodded in agreement, their eyes reflecting the determination to see their mission through to the end. With the defense grid operational and the planetary shield in place, the final moments before the battle were filled with a sense of anticipation and unity. Across the world, people watched and waited, their hopes and fears intertwined with the outcome of the impending conflict. The montage of preparation highlighted humanity's extraordinary effort, showcasing the dedication, bravery, and unity that had emerged in the face of an existential threat. Each character's contribution was a vital piece of the larger puzzle, and their collective actions had set the stage for the ultimate showdown. As the clock ticked down to zero, the world stood poised for the final battle. The combined efforts of scientists, engineers, military personnel, and ordinary citizens had created a formidable defense. Now, all that remained was to confront the alien invaders and protect the planet they called home. The space above Earth was a scene of cosmic chaos, a celestial battleground where the fate of the galaxy was about to be decided. The alien fleet, known as the Xanthar, stretched across the stars like a dark and foreboding cloud. Their massive warships, sleek and menacing, cut through the void with ruthless efficiency. The Xanthar had come with a singular purpose: to subjugate Earth and harness its magnetic field for their own nefarious ends. Against this backdrop, Earth's defenses shimmered with a brilliant glow. The newly erected planetary defense grid pulsed with energy, its magnetic field forming a protective shield around the planet. Satellites, space stations, and ground-based generators worked in unison to create a formidable barrier. The anticipation was palpable as the final battle drew near. The first wave of the Xanthar fleet emerged from hyperspace, their warships emerging in a cascade of shimmering light. They moved in synchronized formation, their sleek hulls cutting through space with deadly precision. The command ship, the Dominion, loomed large, its dark silhouette dwarfing the smaller vessels around it. From Earth's command center, General Monroe and his team watched the approach on a massive holo display. The screens flickered with incoming data as the alien ships closed in on the planetary shield. "Deploy all available fighters and initiate the defense grid," Monroe commanded, his voice steady despite the tension. "We can't let them get through." The skies above Earth lit up as fighter squads launched from the orbital defense stations. Agile starfighters, sleek and fast, darted out to meet the incoming enemy. They streaked through space, their blasters firing in rapid succession. The first volley of laser fire struck the alien ships, creating brilliant explosions against the dark canvas of space. The alien fleet responded with a barrage of energy weapons. Pulses of destructive energy crackled through the void, striking Earth's shield and causing it to shimmer and pulse with energy. The magnetic field absorbed the impact, repelling the onslaught with a dazzling display of power. The battle in space was a frenetic dance of fire and maneuvering. The alien ships, with their advanced weaponry and coordinated attacks, sought to breach the shield, while Earth's defenders fought valiantly to hold their ground. The scene was a symphony of light and sound, with explosions and energy bursts painting the sky. As the space battle reached its crescendo, the Xanthar unleashed their ground forces. Dropships descended from the clouds, their engines roaring as they landed on strategic points across the planet. Alien troops, clad in advanced armor and wielding powerful weaponry, poured out and began their assault on key installations, including the critical magnetic field generators. The first ground attack struck a remote generator site. The area was a hive of activity, with engineers and soldiers working to fortify the defenses. As the alien forces breached the perimeter, the defenders scrambled to mount a counteroffensive. The roar of blaster fire and the hiss of energy weapons filled the air as the battle erupted. Colonel Lane, leading a squad of elite soldiers, coordinated the defense from a makeshift command post. His team moved with precision, using cover and strategy to push back the alien invaders. "We've got to hold them off until we can secure the generator," Lane shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The defenders fought with everything they had, their bravery evident in the face of overwhelming odds. The alien troops were relentless, their advanced technology and tactics pushing the human forces to their limits. The ground battle was a brutal and unyielding struggle, with each side vying for control of the vital generators. While the space battle raged on, the Xanthar fleet deployed a secondary wave of troops, this time targeting Earth directly. Alien ground forces, equipped with advanced technology and weaponry, descended upon key locations across the globe, including several crucial magnetic field generators. The first landing sites were met with fierce resistance from Earth's military forces. The troops, battle-hardened and determined, engaged the alien invaders with everything they had. The ground battles were chaotic, with explosions lighting up the night sky and the air filled with the sounds of combat. Colonel Lane and his unit were on the front lines of one of the critical battle zones. They had received intelligence that an alien strike team was heading toward a vital magnetic field generator. Lane's eyes were sharp as he assessed the situation from his command post. "Deploy additional squads to the generator's location," Lane ordered. "We can't let them take it down." The alien troops advanced with relentless precision, their weapons cutting through human defenses. The fighting was brutal, and the ground forces struggled to hold their positions. The generators, the linchpins of Earth's defense system, were under direct threat. As the alien forces closed in on one of the key generators, the situation grew increasingly dire. The generator's defense systems were engaged, but the sheer number of alien troops threatened to overwhelm them. Amid the chaos, one of Elena's close allies, Lieutenant Alex Carter, a skilled engineer and soldier, received orders to secure the generator at all costs. Carter had been working with Elena and Dr. Price for months, and his expertise had been crucial in preparing the defense systems. Carter arrived at the generator's location just as the alien forces breached its outer defenses. The generator was still operational, but the alien troops were rapidly advancing. Carter quickly assessed the situation, realizing that the generator's destruction would mean the collapse of Earth's defense grid. With a determined look, Carter activated the generator's emergency protocols, setting up a temporary shield to buy time for the ground forces to regroup. The alien troops were momentarily pushed back, but Carter knew that their respite would be short-lived. As the alien forces regrouped and prepared for another assault, Carter made a difficult decision. He could either stay and fight or ensure the generator's survival by taking drastic measures. Knowing the importance of the generator, Carter chose the latter. He accessed the generator's control panel, initiating a self-destruct sequence that would destroy the generator, but ensure its energy could be redirected to bolster the planetary defense grid. It was a calculated risk, one that would cost him his life but save countless others. Carter's final moments were a testament to his bravery and commitment. As the alien forces closed in, he held the line, fighting fiercely to keep them away from the generator. His actions bought crucial time for the remaining defenders to secure the area and prevent the generator's destruction. The generator's self-destruct sequence activated, and Carter's sacrifice ensured that the energy was channeled into reinforcing Earth's defenses. The explosion, though devastating, was contained and directed, amplifying the magnetic shield's power and repelling the alien forces. As the dust settled and the alien troops were driven back, the ground forces took stock of the situation. The generator had been saved, and Carter's sacrifice had not been in vain. His bravery had played a pivotal role in ensuring the defense system remained operational during the critical moments of the battle. The scene was one of mixed emotions: relief at the victory, sorrow for the loss of a hero, and a renewed sense of determination to see the battle through to the end. Carter's sacrifice became a rallying point for the defenders, a symbol of the courage and resolve that had brought humanity to this moment. The final assault continued, with Earth's defenses holding strong against the alien invasion. The combined efforts of the military, scientists, and ordinary citizens had created a formidable shield, and the tide of the battle was turning in humanity's favor. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting a hopeful light on the battlefield, the defenders prepared for the final push. The alien fleet was battered and retreating, their superweapons' impact neutralized by Earth's enhanced defenses. Humanity's resilience and unity had been tested in the crucible of battle, and they had emerged stronger. The last assault had proven their resolve and determination to protect their home, and the fight for Earth was nearing its climax. The chapter closed on a note of cautious optimism, with the defenders regrouping and preparing for the final stages of the conflict. The sacrifices made and the heroism displayed would be remembered as the world awaited the ultimate resolution of the battle against the alien invaders. With the alien forces repelled from the generator site, Earth's defenders regrouped for a final push. The space battle raged on, with Earth's fighters and defense grid holding strong against the remaining Xanthar ships. The tide of the battle had shifted, and humanity's resolve was stronger than ever. As the alien fleet sustained heavy losses, the remaining ships began to retreat. Earth's defenders pursued with relentless determination, their fighters weaving through the wreckage of the battle. The space above Earth was a field of shattered ships and glowing debris, a testament to the fierce conflict that had taken place. Back on the ground, the battle continued as the remaining alien troops fought desperately to complete their mission. The human forces, though exhausted, fought with renewed vigor, driven by the knowledge that the final victory was within their grasp. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting its golden light on the battlefield, the remaining Xanthar forces withdrew. The retreating ships disappeared into the vastness of space, leaving behind a battered but victorious Earth. The battle-scarred Earth, its skies now clear of the menacing alien fleet, was a testament to human resilience. The defense grid, once a shimmering shield, now pulsed with an intense energy that spoke of both triumph and transformation. The magnetic field, altered by human intervention, had stabilized into a new, more powerful configuration, forming a protective barrier that glowed with an otherworldly light. From the command center, General Monroe surveyed the scene with a mixture of relief and solemnity. The screens displayed a mosaic of destruction and victory, with the battered remnants of the Xanthar fleet drifting away into the void. The once chaotic sky was now a canvas of peace, punctuated by the occasional flare of a distant explosion. Dr. Price and Elena stood beside Monroe, their expressions reflecting the weight of their achievement. The battle had cost them dearly, with numerous casualties and widespread destruction. Yet, amidst the rubble, there was a glimmer of hope, a sense that humanity had prevailed against overwhelming odds. The global community began to emerge from the shadows of the conflict. Leaders and citizens alike, weary but victorious, started the process of rebuilding. Cities that had been battered by the ground assaults were slowly restored, their resilience a testament to the spirit of those who had defended them. Memorials were erected to honor the fallen, including Lieutenant Alex Carter, whose sacrifice had been instrumental in turning the tide of the battle. The altered magnetic field now enveloped Earth in a protective cocoon, its energy harnessed to ensure the planet's continued safety. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to stabilize and enhance the new configuration, ensuring that the magnetic shield remained robust against any future threats. In the quiet moments after the victory, Elena found herself alone in a makeshift observatory, gazing out at the calm, restored sky. The tranquility was a stark contrast to the chaos of the battle that had raged just days before. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She thought about the ethical implications of their actions. The decision to weaponize Earth's magnetic field had been a necessary one, but it had also raised profound moral questions. The very essence of nature had been manipulated, and while it had saved humanity, it had also transformed the planet in ways that were not fully understood. Elena's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sun's rays bathed the world in a warm glow. She recalled the sacrifices made, the lives lost, and the moral dilemmas faced. The survival of humanity had come at a great cost, and the weight of that reality pressed heavily on her shoulders. Yet, there was also a profound sense of hope. The victory was not just a triumph of technology or military might. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. The ability to unite in the face of an existential threat, to overcome adversity with ingenuity and courage, was a beacon of hope for the future. As Elena stood there, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle was won, but the journey ahead would require careful navigation of the new reality they had created. The altered magnetic field was a powerful tool, and its potential both for good and ill was immense. She resolved to continue working towards a future where humanity could harness this newfound power responsibly. As the days turned into weeks, Earth began to recover and rebuild. The global community rallied around the shared goal of reconstruction, and the new magnetic shield stood as a symbol of their victory. Yet, in the midst of the restoration efforts, a new concern emerged. Late one night, in the depths of the command center, Dr. Price and her team were analyzing data from the newly calibrated sensors. The screens flickered with patterns of energy and cosmic radiation, a routine check to ensure the stability of the magnetic field. Suddenly, an unusual signal appeared on the monitors, a series of complex patterns and frequencies that did not correspond to any known terrestrial or extraterrestrial sources. The signal was faint but persistent, like a whisper from the depths of space. Dr. Price's eyes narrowed as she examined the data. "This doesn't match any of the frequencies we've encountered before," she said, her voice tinged with both curiosity and concern. "It's coming from deep space, beyond our previous detection range." Elena, who had been reviewing the reports, joined Dr. Price at the monitor. "What do you think it means?" Dr. Price's face was grim. "It's possible that more advanced alien civilizations are now aware of our new capabilities. This signal could be an indication that we've drawn attention from forces even greater than the Xanthar." The realization settled over them like a shadow. The battle for Earth might have been won, but it had also set in motion a new chain of events. The signal hinted at a galaxy-wide network of civilizations, and the implications were both thrilling and daunting. As the signal continued to pulse on the monitor, Elena felt a shiver of anticipation. The story of Earth's defense had only just begun, and the future held unknown challenges and opportunities. The victory was significant, but it was clear that humanity's journey through the stars was far from over. The chapter closed on the enigmatic signal, its patterns glowing against the backdrop of the cosmic expanse. It was a reminder that, while Earth had triumphed over one threat, the galaxy was vast and filled with mysteries waiting to be unraveled. The future was uncertain, but the spirit of humanity was undaunted, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The battle-scarred Earth, its skies now clear of the menacing alien fleet, was a testament to human resilience. The defense grid, once a shimmering shield, now pulsed with an intense energy that spoke of both triumph and transformation. The magnetic field, altered by human intervention, had stabilized into a new, more powerful configuration, forming a protective barrier that glowed with an otherworldly light. From the command center, General Monroe surveyed the scene with a mixture of relief and solemnity. The screens displayed a mosaic of destruction and victory, with the battered remnants of the Xanthar fleet drifting away into the void. The once chaotic sky was now a canvas of peace, punctuated by the occasional flare of a distant explosion. Dr. Price and Elena stood beside Monroe, their expressions reflecting the weight of their achievement. The battle had cost them dearly, with numerous casualties and widespread destruction. Yet, amidst the rubble, there was a glimmer of hope, a sense that humanity had prevailed against overwhelming odds. The global community began to emerge from the shadows of the conflict. Leaders and citizens alike, weary but victorious, started the process of rebuilding. Cities that had been battered by the ground assaults were slowly restored, their resilience a testament to the spirit of those who had defended them. Memorials were erected to honor the fallen, including Lieutenant Alex Carter, whose sacrifice had been instrumental in turning the tide of the battle. The altered magnetic field now enveloped Earth in a protective cocoon, its energy harnessed to ensure the planet's continued safety. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to stabilize and enhance the new configuration, ensuring that the magnetic shield remained robust against any future threats. In the quiet moments after the victory, Elena found herself alone in a makeshift observatory, gazing out at the calm, restored sky. The tranquility was a stark contrast to the chaos of the battle that had raged just days before. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She thought about the ethical implications of their actions. The decision to weaponize Earth's magnetic field had been a necessary one, but it had also raised profound moral questions. The very essence of nature had been manipulated, and while it had saved humanity, it had also transformed the planet in ways that were not fully understood. Elena's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sun's rays bathed the world in a warm glow. She recalled the sacrifices made, the lives lost, and the moral dilemmas faced. The survival of humanity had come at a great cost, and the weight of that reality pressed heavily on her shoulders. Yet, there was also a profound sense of hope. The victory was not just a triumph of technology or military might. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, the ability to unite in the face of an existential threat, to overcome adversity with ingenuity and courage, was a beacon of hope for the future. As Elena stood there, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle was won, but the journey ahead would require careful navigation of the new reality they had created. The altered magnetic field was a powerful tool, and its potential both for good and ill was immense. She resolved to continue working towards a future where humanity could harness this newfound power responsibly. As the days turned into weeks, Earth began to recover and rebuild. The global community rallied around the shared goal of reconstruction, and the new magnetic shield stood as a symbol of their victory. Yet, in the midst of the restoration efforts, a new concern emerged. Late one night, in the depths of the command center, Dr. Price and her team were analyzing data from the newly calibrated sensors. The screens flickered with patterns of energy and cosmic radiation, a routine check to ensure the stability of the magnetic field. Suddenly, an unusual signal appeared on the monitors, a series of complex patterns and frequencies that did not correspond to any known terrestrial or extraterrestrial sources. The signal was faint but persistent, like a whisper from the depths of space. Dr. Price's eyes narrowed as she examined the data. "This doesn't match any of the frequencies we've encountered before," she said, her voice tinged with both curiosity and concern. "It's coming from deep space, beyond our previous detection range." Elena, who had been reviewing the reports, joined Dr. Price at the monitor. "What do you think it means?" Dr. Price's face was grim. "It's possible that more advanced alien civilizations are now aware of our new capabilities. This signal could be an indication that we've drawn attention from forces even greater than the Xanthar." The realization settled over them like a shadow. The battle for Earth might have been won, but it had also set in motion a new chain of events. The signal hinted at a galaxy-wide network of civilizations, and the implications were both thrilling and daunting. As the signal continued to pulse on the monitor, Elena felt a shiver of anticipation. The story of Earth's defense had only just begun, and the future held unknown challenges and opportunities. The victory was significant, but it was clear that humanity's journey through the stars was far from over. In the aftermath of the battle, the leaders of Earth gathered for a momentous occasion. The global community, having witnessed the heroism and sacrifice that had secured their survival, was ready to make a bold statement. They had emerged victorious, but the cost had been high, and the future remained uncertain. General Monroe took the stage before a crowd of world leaders, scientists, and citizens. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as he prepared to address the assembly. Behind him, the massive holographic screen displayed the altered magnetic field's shimmering aura, a symbol of Earth's newfound power. "My fellow humans," Monroe began, his voice resonant and commanding. "Today, we stand on the brink of a new era. We have faced a formidable enemy, and through our courage, ingenuity, and unity, we have repelled their invasion. We have harnessed the power of our planet's magnetic field, transforming it into a shield and a weapon that has safeguarded our world." The crowd erupted into applause, a wave of relief and pride washing over them. Monroe held up his hand to quiet them, his expression turning serious. "But with this victory comes a new challenge. We have detected a signal, a whisper from the depths of space that suggests our newfound power has not gone unnoticed. We are no longer an isolated world. We are now part of a larger cosmic community, and our actions have sent ripples across the galaxy." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "We must understand that while we have achieved a great triumph, we must also prepare for the future. We are sending a message to the stars, a message to any who would seek to challenge us. Earth is not to be underestimated." Monroe's gaze swept across the assembly. "We are a species that has faced adversity and emerged stronger. We have proven that when united, there is no obstacle we cannot overcome. Our magnetic field is a testament to our ingenuity, a symbol of our resilience, and to any who would dare to threaten our world, let it be known that we stand ready to defend our home with all the strength and resolve that defines us." The crowd erupted into cheers once more, their voices a powerful affirmation of Monroe's declaration. Elena and Dr. Price exchanged a look of determination. The message was clear: humanity was not just a fledgling species, they were a force to be reckoned with. As the assembly concluded, the leaders and scientists gathered in the command center to strategize their next steps. The mysterious signal continued to pulse on the monitors, its enigmatic patterns a reminder of the challenges yet to come. But for now, the victory was theirs, and the hope for the future was bright. The battle for Earth had ended, but the journey was far from over. The cosmos awaited, and humanity was ready to face whatever lay beyond the stars, armed with the knowledge that their strength and unity could overcome even the greatest of threats. As the cheering subsided and the crowd began to disperse, a sense of solemnity returned. The speeches had been made, and the declarations of strength echoed through the halls. But the work was far from finished. The altered magnetic field, now a symbol of Earth's resilience, needed to be carefully managed to ensure it remained stable and secure. In the weeks following the declaration, Earth's leaders and scientists collaborated on a comprehensive plan to integrate the magnetic field's new capabilities into their global defense infrastructure. The once fragmented efforts to rebuild now coalesced into a unified mission to fortify their newfound advantage and prepare for any future threats. Dr. Price, Elena, and their team were at the forefront of these efforts. They were working around the clock to refine the magnetic field's functionality, ensuring it could be seamlessly integrated into various defensive systems. The prototype weapon they had developed was tested and calibrated, transforming from a theoretical concept into a practical tool for planetary defense. One evening, as the sun set over a newly restored city, Elena found herself on the rooftop of a high-tech facility, overlooking the bustling streets below. The city was alive with activity, a symbol of humanity's determination to rebuild and move forward. The air was filled with a sense of cautious optimism. Dr. Price joined her, carrying a data tablet displaying the results of their latest tests. The two of them stood in contemplative silence, the weight of their recent victory mingling with the anticipation of what was to come. "We've made incredible progress," Dr. Price said, her voice reflecting both pride and weariness. "But we still need to be vigilant. The signal we detected, it's a reminder that we're not alone in the cosmos." Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "We've shown that Earth can defend itself, but we also need to send a clear message to any potential threats. We need to make sure that anyone out there knows that we're not just a planet to be ignored or underestimated." Dr. Price looked thoughtful. "How do you propose we do that?" Elena turned to face her. "We need to broadcast a message, one that echoes our strength and unity. Something that tells any civilization out there that we're not only capable of defending ourselves, but also ready to engage with the galaxy on our terms. In the heart of a newly established global communications hub, technicians and scientists prepared for a historic broadcast. The facility was abuzz with activity as teams worked to ensure that the message would reach far beyond Earth, penetrating the vast expanse of space. General Monroe, now a key figure in the ongoing defense efforts, stood with Elena and Dr. Price at the control center. The screen before them displayed the final preparation stages of the broadcast. "This message," Monroe said, "is our declaration. It's a statement to the universe that we are not to be taken lightly. We've faced great adversity, and we've emerged victorious. Let this be our call to the stars." Elena took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the control panel. "We're ready," she said, her voice steady. The countdown began. As the final seconds ticked away, the room fell silent, the weight of the moment palpable. With a press of a button, the broadcast was transmitted into the cosmos, a powerful signal carrying humanity's message of strength and resilience. The broadcast was a stunning visual display combined with a resonant, hopeful message. "Greetings from Earth. We are the inhabitants of a world that has faced and overcome great challenges. We have harnessed the power of our planet's magnetic field to protect our home and secure our future. We extend our hand to the galaxy, not as a target, but as a fellow traveler in the vast expanse of space. Understand this: we are capable, we are resilient, and we are not to be underestimated. Earth stands ready to meet whatever comes our way. Our strength is our unity, and our resolve is unwavering." The broadcast concluded with a final, resolute statement. "To any who would listen, know this: humanity has risen. We are ready for the next chapter." As the broadcast was sent, Elena and Dr. Price took a moment to reflect on the journey they had undertaken. The signal, now drifting through the cosmos, was both a beacon of their victory and a challenge to those who might come next. In the command center, the team continued to monitor the mysterious signal that had first alerted them to the galactic community's awareness. The signal had become a focal point of their ongoing research, and they were determined to decode its meaning. General Monroe, now more than ever a symbol of leadership, addressed the gathered team. "We've taken a major step forward. Our message is out there, and we've fortified our defenses. But our vigilance must continue. The cosmos is vast, and our place in it is still unfolding." The team nodded in agreement, their spirits buoyed by the victory, but aware of the challenges ahead. The war against the Xanthar had been a crucial battle, but it was only the beginning of a new era for humanity. They were no longer isolated. They were now a player on the galactic stage. In the aftermath of their victory, Earth began to recover and prepare for the future. The new magnetic shield stood as a symbol of their resilience, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and overcome. The cities were rebuilt, the defenses fortified, and the spirit of unity and strength became a driving force for the planet's future. Elena, Dr. Price, and General Monroe continued their work, each in their own way contributing to the ongoing evolution of humanity's place in the cosmos. The signal they had sent was a declaration of their readiness, a message that they were a force to be reckoned with. As Earth looked toward the stars, the future was both exhilarating and uncertain. The galaxy was a vast expanse filled with unknown possibilities, and humanity's journey was just beginning. The hope and determination that had seen them through the battle would guide them as they ventured into this new chapter. The chapter closed with Elena standing once more on the rooftop, the stars shining brightly above. The message had been sent, and the future awaited. With resolve and anticipation, she gazed into the cosmos, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The victory was theirs, but the adventure was just beginning.